Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I am delighted to be joined by John Hughes and Kevin Graham, where we will be for the next hour talking all things Celtic. And I'm going to start off with my favourite quote of the year, which is as follows. Let's see if we can think of who said this earlier on when talking about Celtic. Those who talk about the club not having kicked on in Europe since 2003 ignore the enormous change in the financial landscape of football in that period. It has created a gap which keeps growing and challenges any club playing in a smaller European league. Kevin Graham, who said that? Do you know who said that, mate?
Is that the bold Desmond?
Oh, no, surely not, Kev. That has to be, is it like Jesus or someone like that? Someone like really wise or,
someone certainly with a God complex, John. Yeah. So much so that he got his laddie to read it at the AGM. And there was a certain wee result that caused a flurry of activity online last night, John Hughes. Bodo Glimt, Manchester City. I mean, this, for me, flies in the face of all that nonsense, that lack of ambition, trying to sell us that line that it's just too hard to compete. You didn't want to swing and miss, blah, blah, blah. Absolute snotters and slavers, isn't it?
Well, I think we said at the time, one of the most depressing things I've ever heard coming from a board is him saying it's aspirational, basically saying Europe for us is aspirational. And essentially they're just going to go about doing their business and if we manage to get a couple of results in Europe, so be it. There'll be no planning for it. There'll be no, it's obviously not a target, it's not a goal, it's none of that. I thought that was one of the most depressing things I've ever heard. And an absolute insult to the fans who spend a fortune travelling around Europe, spend a fortune in tickets. I really can't imagine anything more, contemptuous towards the fans. You spend all your money, but the 77 million of your money that's in here, we're not going to spend that on anybody. So it was just an appalling statement, and it gets worse and worse over time as more and more things get revealed, more and more things unravel. The ludicrousness of that statement about Brendan Rodgers just gets more and more exposed. It's painful. And Bodo, the entire population of Bodo would fit inside Celtic Park, right? But for us, it's aspirational. We can't play any decent football. We can't put systems in place to compete in Europe because it's just aspirational. What's aspirational, I think, for most of the fans is how do we get this board out and get those systems in place the likes of Bodo have? That can produce consistent results where you are punching above your financial weight in Europe. And our financial weight is considerably heftier than theirs. So, we could do better. No matter how much money you spend at the very top end of the game, there are only so many Galacticos in the game. So the fact that you can't get into the sort of last 4 or 5 of the Champions League is neither here nor there because there's so much money. If you can compete at a decent level, as we've said many, many times before, that could advance the club incrementally in a massive way. But instead, we are talking about swinging and missing. With 77 million in the bank, how many times would you have to swing and miss? And exactly how are you swinging and missing? Are you buying players so bad that they have no residual value? What are you talking about, swing and miss? It's pure cliched nonsense. And that kind of thing that happened last night, that result that happened last night with Bodo comfortably beating Man City is remarkable. And it just exposes that outrageous statement for the utter nonsense that it is.
Absolutely, John. And you know what? John's just rapping here. There is nothing on an agenda. He doesn't have a clue what we're talking about. This is not scripted. Kevin Graham's got a little wry grin on his face. Ros Desmond is really extracting it, Kev, when he's trying to sell that kind of nonsense. Now, by the way, this is the thing. It's almost as if there's no middle ground here, right? So you've got Ros Desmond, Dermot Desmond, and the culture within Celtic, Kev, who thinks it's not possible. And they almost sell it as if we think we're going to win the Champions League. We don't. But what John's talking about is true. Imagine having a 10-year plan, right? And flipping the 7 out of 9 failures and saying, how about 7 out of 10 successes? What is success? Finishing in the middle tier of the league, in the Champions League, like we did last year. There's a success. And then incrementally, the money starts coming in, the finances start coming in. And if you've got a proper model and you're actually using it properly so that every 3 years, the prize assets ×2 every season go, but you brought another couple in last season, which are obviously coming in to replace them. Kev, you can improve. You can swing and hit. Never mind swing and miss.
You can. I was thinking about this the other day, and what we have been good at is appointing managers. And as these managers raise the floor, the folk who run us actually lower the ceiling. And so they're going to...
Is it like the Jamiroquai video? Remember that? Virtual Insanity? With Paul Tisdale with a hat on.
Aye, the cat in the hat. Aye, like that. So our managers, Martin O'Neill and that, take it up. The board bring it down because they go, we can't do that, we can't do that. Mainly because the way that we run a football club now is outdated. And that's that is the basic problem. It took me back to a quote Martin O'Neill says, 2004, would it have been? When he says, welcome to life in the slow lane. No remember he says that, eh?
He did.
And that was 6 months after a certain Peter Wall was appointed. So if you wanted to see where our lack of ambition comes from, it comes from straight after Seville. So our lack of Europe. So funnily enough, we haven't won a European knockout tie since the year after Seville. Eh? So you can put 2 and 2 together there and get 5. What the major problem is in the football club. Also, other major problem is in the football club that you've all got sons of Peter there who dance to the same tune.
Lowellites, I call them, Kev. Lowellites.
Who still believe that to be the case. On the other hand, having watched a bit of Bodo and seen a bit of the background of them, we would never accept as a support what Bodo do. Truthfully, we would laugh the manager out the ground. I mean, he never mentions winning. He talks about performance. He doesn't talk about winning. He talks about players being the best versions of themselves. Blah blah blah. Oh, complete and utterly modern coach nonsense. And he would get completely laughed at this country, and probably our club as well.
Well, do you not think, Kev? Though you can say that as long as you've got the results to back it up. You can say whatever you want as long as you've got the results to back it up. From him, it makes perfect sense. From Wilfred Nancy, it sounds like the ravings of a madman. So there's very important context there, I think.
When you were talking about quotes of last year, I mean, my favourite quote for last year is straight after the cup final: "The ball is the ball." I'm never going to. I noticed the new Chelsea manager's getting a bit tight in the neck recently. And anytime I see anybody on social media talking about you manage men and you're men of a certain age, as he actually says, I just put underneath it. We had a manager that actually says the ball is the ball. I mean, so he can actually that just tops everything. In
all walks of life, though, Kevin, your work, John's work, my walk of life, you come up against people who are seriously genius at their work, and then you get a million imitations, and it's the million imitations that say the ball is the ball because they're trying to be left field and all this kind of nonsense. Nancy was useless. Nancy should never have been anywhere near Celtic Park. So I think that you would need to strike a balance, and as John says, you can have success as well as implementation of academy and producing footballers, and then having a recruitment structure and having a football department that's got a structure. We've been talking about this now for almost 9 years, Kev, strangely enough, whereby in the early days you were telling me Celtic are a Europa League team, they're not a Champions League team, and we're still having a discussion 9 years later, Kev, and at no point during the 9 years has the club ever came out and given us a vision to tell us any different. They're actually backing up what you're saying.
We're heading to being a Conference League team. And again, I remember when we were told in a meeting that Celtic had been involved in creating this competition. by a certain Peter Lawwell, because he says, oh, there'll be more Scottish teams in Europe and they're going to get more group stages in European football, this and that. Maybe he didn't think it was going to be us, but it could actually be that way. And maybe that was their ambition. Maybe that was their ambition after all.
Is somebody trying to play a ZX Spectrum game in your living room, Kev? Can you hear that, John? John, you can hear that. Is that somebody trying to phone you? Is that a dial-up? Are you
Somebody's
still wired into the mains?
Somebody's trying to phone them.
Remember that, John? Yahoo Mail.
Yes,
somebody picks the phone up.
I'm old enough to remember dial-up on old landlines.
That's what I said.
I once bought a broadband phone system long before there was proper broadband in place to handle it, and it was a total disaster. So, you know, all of us make bad purchases now and again.
Yeah, we do. Some more than others, John. Some more than others, which takes us on to the next subject, and that is Celtic's recruitment. Now, I just wanted to get that in there because in relation to it, I think the quote itself, John, talks down to Celtic supporters as if we're numpties that don't know what we're talking about. And what you then find is that people within the game are willing to speak to you. And you start gathering information and you realise that what you're being fed is a whole load of nonsense. And you see this last night as an example. And you look at Bodo Glimt. Now, they're a team that we faced. I've got to admit, I knew nothing about this club until we faced them under Ange, John. Nothing. And then since then, this is a club that you're thinking every single time we need a new manager, and it's been 3 or 4 times this season alone, you hear Kjetil Knutson's name coming in, and you think to yourself, Bodo Glimt, what are they doing? But what I've said from the beginning when it comes to that is let's look at their structure rather than the head, rather than looking at the manager who's picking the team and coaching the team. Look at the structure that they've got and try and replicate the structure.
Well, the structure's the all-important thing because when we were looking around for a manager, obviously all us as fans were saying, what about this guy? But then when you looked into it, he couldn't work at Celtic. You know, because there is no structure.
He would probably fail at Celtic, John.
I would say so, yeah, because that's not how he works. So I don't think it's, and this is the point. It's not to do, it's supposed to be less to do with personalities and more to do with systems. Systems are replicable, right? You cannot replicate personalities. So when that person moves on, that's it gone. That's the contacts gone. That's all the relationships gone, all the rest of it. But if you have systems in place which can provide you consistency, that's the point. And that's what Bodo Glimt, that tiny wee club in the end of the Arctic, where none of us would want to live, never mind play football. Although it's probably not quite as cold as Glasgow all at the time, but there we go. That's the point. Is it shouldn't be about that. You should, in order to maximise what you're capable of, you have to have the people and the systems in place. You have to have. For instance, I heard Alan talking about this the other day. They couldn't come in and just, if we got Jamestown Analytics, which we can't, obviously, because of Tony Bloom, but whatever one we got, you can't just come in and switch that on. It doesn't just it's not suddenly a miracle cure. You have to have people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So the personnel are equally as important. And someone else from a data background said to me that this Celtic approached someone about doing a sort of relationship thing. And they pointed out, you don't have the capability to work this as it stands. And it was just left. And that's one of the things that's been exposed this year, and especially in this window. We get nothing there. We've got absolutely nothing there. And I have to say, on last week, I was saying either Tisdale's stuff is an absolute sham or it's somehow he's left the building with all the information. And I couldn't work out which one it was, but obviously that's what's happened because they started with no information. And then someone pointed out to me during the week that the information they had is that Tisdale's a contractor. Tisdale was in a contract, he wasn't an employee. Therefore, the contract's terminated early, he leaves the building with everything that he owns. I mean, I wouldn't believe that.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, but I genuinely
including Nancy.
Yeah. But I'm willing to believe virtually anything of this board now. When people are coming out with stories that you previously would have gone, well, that doesn't seem very likely, you're now thinking that absolutely seems likely. Until we get put a football department in that is worthy of the name and doesn't consist of two men and a dog, we've got a chief scout and wee gangster Sean Five Hats, as he's otherwise known, doing all the jobs. They're the guys doing that from a standing start. Your other man, the scout's only in the door as well. Mm-hmm. From an absolute standing start, they're doing this. And that's the mess they've been left with. So I cannot for the life of me think that moving on from here, the board are still going to be proclaiming themselves infallible. And look, we've been doing this for 10, 20 years. We've been doing all right. Patting us in the head as they pat themselves in the back.
John, 19 group stages out of 21. 19 out of 21.
What an achievement. What an achievement. Actually, by the end of this year, it might look like an achievement. But anyway, to take that seriously now, after what's transpired and after the way that it's all been exposed as just such a fragile and thin house of cards, that there is no functional business department there as we would know it in terms of, no, I'm not talking about the merch and all the rest, I'm talking about the actual football department. It's not functional, there's nothing there. So I can't believe they're going to carry on with this pretense that everything's grand and the way that we've been doing things for 10, 15 years is all good. I mean, clearly it's not the case. You have 70-plus-year-old men, mid-70s men, who need their grandchild to help them work a phone, telling us why analytics isn't the way to go, but, it's just their worldview is how we should view it, and their experience is how we should do it. This Jurassic view they have of everything new that's coming into the game and has already bypassed us. It's was the old U2 song, "We're in it to stand still." So not only are we not advancing, and not only are we standing still and therefore going backwards, we are actually going backwards. And when everyone else is piling forward, when everyone else is looking to maximise every advantage they have in the game, when every club is getting more and more and more professional, getting more and more slick, and we have no response to that as it stands. And I can believe, but I prefer not to believe that they can possibly keep up this absurd sham that there is actually something happening in the background there.
No, you're right.
I disagree, John. I don't think we're going backwards. I think we are where we're meant to be. I think this is where we've always been, and we've got away with it for years and years. Just so happens that over the last 4 or 5 transfer windows, we've got it badly wrong. And now in the last 6 months, everything's sort of fallen apart, and we no longer have a manager who can actually take a weak squad and try to get us over the line and cover the cracks. Our opponents have got more competent, and when we get into Europe, we just can't handle competent sides that we actually play. This is where we're meant to be. This is where we've always meant to be. It's just now that folk are now got their act together, and and it's just shining the light on. We're in utter shambles.
But we need to get our act together, because I don't think this is where Celtic should be as a football club. I think
we shouldn't have been in this place for the last 19 years.
But the Bodo Glimt example shows that if you get your act together and you're competent, and by the way, I only think Hearts and Rangers are competent. They're doing their jobs competently. They're recruiting competently, and whoever wins the league this season will be the most competent of the 3. I don't think any of the 3 of them are outstanding. The Jamestown analytics thing isn't a magic wand. I mean, it's just something that should have been done at Celtic for a long, long time. But I don't think this is where Celtic should be. We should dominate the game because of the inbuilt advantages we've got with regards to finance, and the stadium, and the support, Kev. But the problem is we've never built on it. This is the issue for me. We just see a wee run in Europe, almost like a bonus, a few wee jollies. I'll come back to that in a moment, because I'll tell you something right now. If Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay are on that plane to Italy, I think that is a huge, huge issue. Talking to jollies, they should be in the boiler room at Celtic Park trying to do deals. Incidentally, and can I just say, Kev, it's absolutely brilliant to see you, mate. The reason you're on today is because we all got a wee message this morning, gentlemen, didn't we, from a certain Patrick McGilp. Right, this is how it works at Acsom HQ. We get a wee message, just getting set up and stuff, and Patrick says, "Morning, guys. Apologies for the short notice, but I won't be able." And you're thinking to say, "Oh, he's maybe got a wee cold, or there's a work meeting popped up on their calendar." Kev, you know how it is. But I'm in Cape Verde. Right, good luck, and I shall be tuning in with a beer. And I say to you guys, did he get news that we were going to sign a new striker? Go up to Tennants for a bevy on Byers Road, bump into Declan McConville and Neil Lennon, and wake up in Cape Verde. Patrick McGill, cheers for the heads up, mate. It means that we can talk to Kev. But
I just point out for all the people that might be listening from Cape Verde, yes, no, that is not a giant ice sculpture on the beach, human-shaped ice sculpture. That's a Glasgow person, and that's the colour that they are.
That is the colour that we are, yes.
Anybody from Cape Verde, if he sees somebody that's pure white with kind of fairish hair, just keep on telling him to put on sun cream.
Absolutely.
Just keep on saying in the shade and put on sun cream.
Without a doubt, it leads us though onto a striker, gents. It leads us onto that news last night that started to break, John. And we were, I think, blessed in the fact that we do have someone within the Acsom group who's got a great knowledge of German football. He's got a season ticket in Germany, and he watches the game. He actually watches the German game and the French game very, very closely, and he can educate us certainly on the goings on. And he gave us a right good breakdown of this supposed new striker, Tomáš Čvančara. And it looks as though this deal will happen today. John, what did we find out last night about our new striker?
Well, I found out that people lose their minds over a bit of information. So that's unsurprising, really. So the information that we have is about his time at Gladbach, right? Not about his potential, really, because we don't know that. He obviously had a good time at Sparta. But I mean, there's Yannick 222 in the comments, and he says, as a Gladbach and Celtic fan, Čvančara is the worst striker I've ever seen at Gladbach and widely regarded as the worst transfer of recent years, causing the resignation of the football director. So what we got last night, and this is, again, I would stress about the time he's had at Gladbach. So if everyone just chill for a minute, because there's other context to this as well. I would also point out, if he had a great time at Gladbach, he wouldn't be coming to us. Right? So I think that's pretty understandable. So our man on the ground there, and this is his opinion, said, I've seen every minute of every game that Čvančara has played for Gladbach, half of them in person. He's my scouting report for what it's worth. He's been a complete disaster at Gladbach, signed for 9 to 10 million euro from Sparta. It's never been clear exactly how much, but that is a big fee by Gladbach standards. Scored a screamer on his debut and also a last-minute pen in the same game to secure 4-4 draw at Augsburg. But only a handful of goals since then, although one was a last-minute header to win a game versus Union Berlin. There was a dressing room revolt against him in April this year as top players went to the coach to say he was disruptive. He was shipped out to Antalyaspor in August, but they stopped paying his wages, so he's back in Gladbach, but will not play for the first team again this season. Goodish in the air might be okay in Scotland, but I've seen him in numerous one-on-ones with keepers, and he's never scored. Czech international at one time, but not anymore. Looks like a giraffe and very fast, has a real burst of pace, likes the ball to his feet to run onto. Not a target man to hold the ball up. I wouldn't touch him, but he might do something in Scotland. Gladbach want Redden would be happy with, say, $1 million and him off the wage bill. The former DOF never quite recovered from signing him. Gladbach fans will be delighted to see the back of him, but that doesn't mean he couldn't be a success in Glasgow. And following up other context on that, because again, there's two sides to every story. So this season, this is someone else commenting, this season for 4 of the 5 months he was playing for Antalyaspor in Turkey, he was unpaid. They're having serious financial difficulties, so they weren't targeting him. Do you know what I mean? He eventually returned to Gladbach only after appealing to FIFA to terminate the loan. Can't imagine that was an incredibly motivating environment for him. In the previous season at Gladbach, he was getting around 10 to 15 minutes per game on average. 2 goals in 28 games doesn't look great, but minutes-wise, he only played the equivalent of 5 or 6 full 90-minute games during that period. Maybe unfair to judge him whilst he's feeding on scraps. The season before, his first at Gladbach started reasonably well. He scored 3 goals and 1 assist in his first 4 games. He then unfortunately tore his ankle ligaments mid-season and struggled to recover. The 2 previous seasons at Sparta Prague were very successful, averaging roughly a goal or assist every other game in both seasons. I don't know if he'll ever be prolific, but his height, strength and hold-up play are unlike any player we've had for quite some time now. Fingers crossed. So there you have it. It's basically 2, one opinion about what happened in Gladbach and one justification for what happened at Gladbach. He was played out of position. The reason why the players went to complain and say he was being disruptive is because they punted him out to the wing because they signed a top-quality striker who's in the German setup, I believe. And they punted him out to the wing. He took the huff and he wasn't taking it well and was falling out with his teammates. So that's what happened there. There is context to everything. Obviously, we're not getting a guy who's on fire in the Bundesliga. So what we have to look at is, can he replicate that Sparta form? He said 2.5 pretty poor years, a difficult time, injury and form. And you have to hope that he sees this as a massive, massive opportunity to turn his career around, because where his career's going now isn't anywhere great, and he's had a very rough time. And again, we've had luck with these kind of situations before, with turning around people who had a torrid time at their previous club, and but have the basic skills we need. And we can convert them with the right management, the right coaching, the right confidence, because I get this feeling with this guy is if you show him some serious love, it might be the main thing that he needs. You make him the main man. But what I wouldn't say based on that is don't play him on the wing. You'll not be happy.
Well, the thing is, John, I would go right back to you're spot on. This guy firing on all cylinders, having moved to Borussia Mönchengladbach, doesn't come to Celtic. We need to find little situations where there's players who, for whatever reason, are out of form, out of favour, low in confidence. And I've spoken about the 2000 FA Cup final a number of times, because I don't know if you remember who was playing in that game, but it was Chelsea versus Aston Villa. It was 1-0 to Chelsea, and Di Matteo scored the goal. The reason I'm bringing it up is because there was a massive signing in the Chelsea squad who wasn't even on the bench. And there was a big signing at the time for Aston Villa who wasn't even on the bench. And they joined each other after the game for a drink in the players' lounge. And it was Chris Sutton and Alan Thompson. And within a matter of months, they guys had been signed by Martin O'Neill and were massive in Martin's first season and beyond, Kev, getting us a treble in the first season, pushing on to Seville a few seasons later. And I've spoken to both of those players, Kevin. There's been others who have said that Martin O'Neill is a genius at putting the arm around the shoulder, taking somebody under your wing, building up your confidence and getting you back on track. There's a good chance he'll do it again.
There is a good chance he's doing it again, but there's also a good chance that this boy is an utter dumpling.
John and I are trying to build us up. We're trying to build us up here.
I've seen
so much for context here.
We'll get back to Balikwisha in a moment.
Look, when John's reading that scouting report, and it makes me think that the scouting report that we've got possibly for his agent has got more redactions than the Epstein files. But look, we're getting damaged goods. That's where we are. We've got no recruitment. We've got no database. We've got no nothing. So we're relying on agents of punting players about, and we're looking at the profile and like, this is why we've ended up with a guy who is splitting the support before he's even like. I mean, I want a like big physical strikers. I think we've been missing that. As John says, he has got a bit of pace. I would like a striker that would manage to score one-on-ones right enough. We haven't had one of them for a wee while. It sounds like Martin's went for the profile. We need a big guy, and he's a penalty box striker. We just need to wait and see. But the bottom line is, we're not going to get anybody in the. We're not going to get anybody that's totally firing on all cylinders unless they see us as a massive step up. And the market that we are looking at is exactly the market that this boy's in, alone with an option to buy. Mm-hmm. And I can't see us doing anything else. I sometimes wonder what folk we were going to bring in. Like, they're going to, this one, that one, 6 million here and there. That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen this window. We're going short-termism. It's going to be loans with maybe an option to buy, and maybe somebody for the Scottish League that sees coming to us as a step up.
Domestic ones, we might spend money on the domestic ones, Kev.
Aye, we might spend money on the domestic ones, but I think folk expectations of this window are still very, very high. And this the big guy, the big striker, I hope he does brilliantly. I think I've still got PTSD for Morten Rasmussen. Sorry, maybe this is where I'm...
Big Duncan.
Maybe this is where it's coming from. I hope the big fella does really, really well for us and scores. Hope he actually has an Adam Ida impact when he came on board.
Yeah,
that's what we're probably looking for, But we are where we are, and this is where the strike. This is the type of player that's going to end up at our football club over the next week or so.
Yeah, and people criticise anything that you're saying, whether positive or negative. Sometimes, as we know, you're either being ridiculously positive for a guy who doesn't have the record, or you're being ridiculously negative and the boy's not even in the door. I mean, if you take Yamada, for instance, I was wrong about Yamada. I thought Yamada would have a real potential based on his stats in Japan. I thought he was going to do well for us if he was given a chance. And there was wee sort of inklings here or there, but unfortunately, I've seen him play in person now a number of times, and he doesn't look like a football player. He's one of these.
You've seen a football?
No, I mean, it's one of these. He gets in a position, and then it's just like, I don't know. It's just like he forgets how to play the game, and it's really, really obvious. It's not, you can't miss it. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you could watch him and think, oh, he's got potential. That was a bad miss or whatever. He very rarely gets to the point of having a bad miss. Usually just falls over it or loses it in possession as soon as he gets it. You know, so I was wrong about that. I was too positive about that based on what I'd seen. So since then as well, and what we've learned about how these guys were scouted, you know, as we know, I think it was the translator that gave them information on that sort of thing. You know, that's, you know, real you know, in-depth scouting that we've done there. But you know, you don't want to be. All I'm trying to do here is put context there. So there is the guy's playing poorly, obviously, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't be here, as we said. There are reasons why he might be playing poorly. We just need to be aware of that, and then we make our own minds up when he comes on. Nobody's condemning him. Nobody's, you know, blowing him up to be the next Messiah. So basically, all we're saying is, here's the context. We'll make our minds up when we see him, but you should be aware of what that context is, in case you're expecting to come on and start banging in goals every 5 minutes. I think he's played like 90 minutes in the last 3 months overall. I mean, the chances of him coming on on Sunday, for instance, or starting the game on Sunday, I would say are pretty slim to nil.
I'm going to give Celtic AM says this morning. He played in a mid-season friendly for Gladbach, 45 minutes. So let's put this really, really cards on the table. I hope the big fella's absolutely fantastic for us. I can what the optics look like. I expected the optics to look like this, but that doesn't mean I'll only be jumping up and down as soon as if he scores 20 goals for now at the end of the season. I love the big fella if he actually does that right. But the optics are this: we're getting a guy who our coaching staff have not watched in person. because he hasn't played a game for them to watch in person. So the first time the coaching staff are going to see this guy is Friday afternoon or Saturday morning. Like, that is the context. That is the context of where we are as a football club.
Yeah, and the thing is, Kev, I'm certainly not going to write him off. I'm looking at the other guys that we've been linked to, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I'd much rather be signed this chap than Bamba, for example, right? And there's been other players that we've been linked to as well that I wasn't too keen on. I seen this fella and thought to myself, right, what if he's caused problems in the past? Sometimes that gives a player an edge. That doesn't mean to say you're going to come to your new club and cause trouble. I mean, I'm not comparing him as a player to Cantona, but remember, he was a troublesome guy when Man United signed him, and he ended up kicking a racist fan as well, whilst at Manchester United, right? Granted. But look at all the good stuff that he did for the club as well. And I'm looking at this particular player thinking, well, the last time with a striker with that kind of height was Adamida, in actual fact. And look, great point Kev made. Look at the impact he made when he was on loan. He came in and, for me, he was one of the biggest reasons why we won the double when he comes into the football club. So I'm actually quite positive at the moment, Kev. And I'm going to bring up... Sorry, on you go, mate.
He was the fourth choice striker at Norwich, and it would be interesting to see how many minutes he had played before he wandered through.
Yeah, and look at the impact he made. I mean, not just the Scottish Cup final winner. He scores at Ibrox in a 3-each draw. He scores a brace against Motherwell. He scores 2 penalties against Hibs. I thought he was excellent when he came in. Barry McCluskey makes a good point. Those man management skills that we were talking about there with Martin O'Neill will only improve with age. I think he's brilliant. He's a genius at that. He's brought that Brian Clough thing to the table, John.
I think have only improved with age, not will only improve with age. I think he's old enough now.
The age has come. Yes.
Yes.
The age has arrived.
That's a fact. I mean, as the certainly by a distance the eldest of this group, what I would say is you forget all the things you didn't know when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because just over a period of time, you gain that experience with, how to deal with people and deal with situations. And it's only when, I deal with some of the younger generation now and you're just like, what? I don't understand what the problem is. Pick up the phone and talk to them. Oh, I can't phone. You just got to message and, all this sort of stuff. It's generational. But again, that's a minor point, but it is a fact that, things are very different now. These are, and when you look at, so Martin's a man in his, closer to his mid-70s and his 70s, or he's 70 anyway, and, he's dealing with guys in their 20s and some of them under 20.
Mm-hmm.
So you are relying on, experience purely of relationships, because there's no sort of bonding over something there that's not to do with football. So it's to do with motivation, it's to do with personality, it's to do with the game. That's the only thing you have to bond over. If these guys were to start talking about Martin, about their interests outside the game, he probably wouldn't be able to speaking absolute gibberish to him, I imagine. But Martin is, as we've all seen, he's the kind of guy you want to be his friend, and it's very much like Ange in that regard. These are guys that you want to run through a brick wall for because, you love them straight off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Ange came in and the force of his personality was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And, even today, you'd want to run through, or I would anyway, although running through a brick wall wouldn't be particularly difficult for me, to be fair. But you take my point. So, but Ange was a fabulous motivator, a great leader. He had that strength of personality. That's what Martin has. Maloney has all the coaching skills, as do Fotheringham. They don't have that same depth or level or stature of personality that Martin has. He is a man who is a leader, and a group like this, which is fractured and basically struggling, you need a guy who you'll run through the brick wall for. You need a guy who's going to get that extra out of you. You absolutely do, because anyone who is lesser than that, as we've just seen, is going to come into a group like this and struggle badly. So we're very lucky to have him available for the moment to try and right this ship.
Without a doubt. See, I'm going to ask you this, Kevin, right? In terms of generational. So you look at someone like Martin O'Neill, and you could reel off what this man has achieved in the world of football. 2 European Cups medals as a player. He played in the World Cup finals. They almost qualified once they got there. First ever Catholic to captain the North of Ireland, and never mind at a World Cup final. And when you move into his management, he's won domestic trophies at the top level of English football. He's won a treble for the first time since Jock Stein as the manager of Celtic. He led us to a European final. He's managed at international level. Does all of that mean something to this new generation of footballers, Kev, or do they see the age, and do they judge with regards to what does this fella know? Because I think in terms of a CV, you look at Martin O'Neill's and you'd be like, there would be an aura about this man before he even walked in the room. Never mind once he walked in the room. I mean, incredible history, incredible CV. Worked under some fantastic managers as well, Kev. Is that still a thing with this new generation of talent coming through? I would hope it is.
I would hope it is, but I sometimes doubt it. The lad's agents maybe says to him after, look, you're going to go to Celtic, big club, great chance to get your career back on track.
Mm-hmm.
You might get a great move. This team always plays in Europe, the group stages, because that's our ambition, no further. And you might get a bigger move on the tournament. Then he went, by the way, have a wee look at the manager that you're going to be playing under. And then that's when the guy would probably have a look. I'm sure the boy wouldn't have a clue who Martin O'Neill was until he started looking into Celtic. Does it make any difference nowadays? I don't really think it does. I think these guys will make a judgment after the first 10, 15 minutes of meeting a manager if this guy's going to improve them and make their career prospects better. And I think that's all they'll look at, especially it's only 6 months. Look, it makes a big difference for us. It makes a massive difference for us having somebody with the kudos of Martin O'Neill in charge of Celtic.
Yeah.
And hopefully the big fella actually learns all about Martin O'Neill and Martin gets the best of him. But I don't think any player that we're going to go in for over the next couple of weeks is going to sign for Celtic because Martin O'Neill's there. I think there's numerous different reasons why they'll sign for Celtic, and it's more going to be for career progression. It's not going to be to play under Martin O'Neill. I'm sorry to say.
No, it's a good point. I'm going to bring this one up as well, Kev, because we spoke about this quite some time ago. The 2 kids that left Celtic for Bayern Munich, one of them, Liam Morrison, is back in Scottish football on loan at Aberdeen. He's only 22, and the other one, Barry Hepburn, has been out the game for moving on to 18 months since Bayern Munich released them. It just shows you, Kev, that sometimes the grass isn't always greener when you leave Celtic as a youngster, doesn't it?
It does, but these youngsters are getting offered life-changing money that we can't compete with. We could we compete with it if we ripped up the whole structure, the wage structure? Yes, that's something that needs to happen longer term because we've still got a quite old-fashioned wage structure where we still believe that guys in our first team squad can still earn £5,000-6,000 a week.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I mean, what's Colby Donovan getting? He'll be on something like that, won't he? If that.
You're maybe talking about Ross Doohan's probably just got a £500 wage increase that he was probably getting at Aberdeen. So you've still got that level there. So the grass isn't greener, and what a lot of these guys have got to remember is they move to leagues which are far harder than any level that they've played at. So you're the star man in Scotland. Next thing you can, you're doing it at an under-23 academy doing in England against elite athletes, and they're eating you for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
they're running across the top of you.
If you look at it from their point of view, if you're making a decision as a young kid, and let's leave Celtic out of it, you're going from one team to the other. Your decision has to be: I'm going up to a much harder league. I might not succeed in that league, but they're paying me an absolute fortune. Worst case scenario, I get punted, and I come back to where I am. And I end up making the same money I was going to, except I've had an interlude of a few years where I've made an absolute fortune. The other worst case scenario, you could be an 18-year-old and you can have both your knees done at 19, and that'll be you finished. So it's very difficult objectively. Like, I mean, literally, if you leave Celtic out of that sentence, it's not a difficult decision for anybody. If you here are your options. One way you have, potentially life-changing money, and worst case scenario, you're back where you are. The other way, you stay here and slog through, and you play first-team football. Potentially play first-team football, but that's not a given. So, I mean, if you don't have a club bias in there, is it a difficult decision?
Well, this is the thing, and again, John, like you say there, it's a very fickle career, being a footballer. So these decisions are made for a multitude of reasons. I'm bringing a few of these comments in. First of all, Dino Carr is asking for a Fife fan zone. Well, I'll tell you something, Dino. I would be more than happy to do something Acsom related in Fife. I think what it would require is for a few CSCs to get together, because anything that's ever been launched in terms of live Celtic events in Fife, I think, has been a bit of a hard sell. It would need to come from the CSCs, but I would more than happily get involved in that. We are in Glasgow at Barazat and Design tomorrow night for the Bologna game, and live music, free pies, and all that kind of good stuff as well. And I'm going to be joined by Tony Haggerty on stage. Remember Tony?
Do you remember Tony?
From back in the day. Tony will be on stage with Acsom tomorrow night.
No better man than Tony, no better turn of phrase than Tony. He's coined some absolute fantastic things that will not to be forgotten. The free scoring, never boring. He says never forgotten and then forgets it.
Rip roaring.
Thank you. Rip roaring, free scoring, never boring. Glasgow Celtic. Yeah, that's Tony's turn of phrase. The man has a fabulous way of thinking about things. So I'm sorry I'll not be there.
No,
is there a game on tomorrow night, Paul John?
Well, let's talk a little bit about that.
John, sorry, before we go into the game tonight, John, see what you were mentioning there about young guys going down to England and coming up and earning the same amount of money up here. Is that Kieran Tierney you're talking about?
Could well have been.
Yeah, well, there's a perfect example. I know he's the best paid player in our club. Although he did actually get a turn down there, didn't he?
He did. And the thing, I mentioned this other day there, in terms of Kieran Tierney, he's at a point at the moment where he's about to exceed the most minutes he's ever played in a season since he left Celtic. In terms of game time, Tierney is back in that respect. So if you want to come along to the fan zone, everything's free, obviously, to get in, etc. The bar isn't free. We're not that flush. However, if you want to come along, best thing to do is book your seat. The link is under this video. I'm bringing this up from Cool Hand. PJ, they will be on the first on the plane. I'm talking about the CEO and CFO, and I'm being serious about it. A lot of people are disagreeing with this. They shouldn't be anywhere near the game against Bologna tomorrow, Kev. That's a jolly for them. They don't have to be there. The Celtic board can be represented by somebody else. They've got business to do, Kev. It's as simple as that. We need to get deals over the line before we play Hearts. And, of course, we want to get the striker over the line. There might be another guy that we can get the deal done. I mean, I'm talking like we've mentioned about Kieran Bowie, for example, at Hibs. We know for a fact, Kev, that when we signed Luke McCowan, that Celtic and Hibs were the two teams that wanted to sign him from Dundee. Both clubs bid 800 grand. Hibs wouldn't go above that. Celtic would. And they went up to £1 million. There's a make weight if you want to go back to Hibs. There's a make weight right there. Luke McCowan might be part of the deal. You go to Motherwell with Stephen Welsh. There's a lot to be done between now and Tynecastle, and I want the CEO and CFO because their day-to-day jobs, Kev, is at Celtic Park. So I would have them at Celtic Park working. What's your take on it?
Of course they should be at Celtic Park working, but then again, they're that useless. Maybe they're better on a plane where they can't get anywhere near a phone. I mean, this big fella's no signed yet. There's still time for Michael to fax their own document to their own club or something like that. There's still time to mess this up. So maybe they're better getting on the plane and not getting in the road. I'm not as fixated about getting guys in for Tynecastle anyway. I think that is really well and truly past now. And even if the big fella does sign, then I can, at the bare minimum, he's going to be on the bench. I can't see him starting. And anybody else that we managed to get between now and, I mean, we've only got to Friday afternoon to register anybody anyway. I would expect for them to play. So, I didn't. The Tynecastle deadline is sailed. That ship has sailed. So we need to go with what we've got. I don't think Tynecastle is as pivotal as what folk are making it out to be. I really don't think, I'm going to be real negative here. I don't think it doesn't matter what happens at Tynecastle. I don't think we're winning the league this season anyway. I think we're in too big a mess, no matter who comes in. So well, I just want to see a serious bit of rebuilding for now to the summer.
I don't know. I think we're still
and that's it. I don't really believe that the club believe that they can turn it around.
I would agree with you to the extent that I don't believe that the board believe we can turn it around. I'm not sure how bothered they are about it, despite the fact, as I've said last week and the week before, I mean, if Rangers go on straight into the Champions League, which could well happen, that's a huge generational, potentially damaging event. So, you know, I'm not prepared in any way, shape or form to concede this league. I'm not prepared to let them concede this league. The consequences of that could be utterly massive. So even Hearts getting Champions League money could be utterly massive. So, you know, in terms of whether, you know, what we're going to do, what's going to happen on Sunday, well, look, they've got 3 guys injured who are 3 of their mainstays already. So, you know, for us, that's a positive. Sad state of affairs that we have to look at that, but that is the fact. So that's positive because these things all make a difference and they don't have depth to their squad, much like we don't have depth to ours. So, you know, whoever puts out the decent, most consistent, team's going to take it. We can still beat Hearts. Hearts are no great shakes. They beat us 2-0 there, and it was just. But I thought they were garbage in that game. It's just that we were worse, and the same could be said for the Rangers game. So I don't think either of these teams are uncatchable or some. You know, something that we just got to throw our hands up and say, oh, we should just rebuild. But not a chance. They are not very good. They are just good relative to how bad that we have been. We can get that sorted. I would fancy our chances just more from the fact that Martin's back in. And we can scrape out some sort of result. I would say as long as we don't lose, I'll be happy enough. But the problem is if we do lose, you are reliant on them then to collapse. Because, for instance, we have 2 Rangers games coming up. And that, the run-in we have. Are we going to win both of those? It's been a while since we've done that. So you just start to run out of games. So I think it is a massive, massive game. And I think it could well be pivotal.
Yeah, I'm not conceding it, Kev. I'm not conceding the league yet. And it's not because I live on a wee pink cloud and think everything's going to be rosy. One of the biggest factors is the fact that I wasn't sure we were going to, but we got rid of Nancy and brought Martin O'Neill back. I think when we go into Tynecastle, we're going into play a team who, I'm not going to say the wheels came off against Falkirk, but I seen that result coming. It's just unfortunate it was in the cup. I'd much rather it was in the league. I saw them drop them, and I can see them drop them more. I can't see them coming to Celtic Park and beating us under Martin O'Neill. I think Ibrox will be tough for them as well. So I'm not conceding yet. And again, like John, if we go out there and draw one each, I'll be more than satisfied at this moment in time. So Foley is saying, come on, they will be in Bologna. It's easy to get Nicholson on the phone. Listen, even when he's in Glasgow, it's not easy to get him on the phone. Have you not read that stuff for the agent when it was Tabby's deal and he ended up at Sunderland? He doesn't answer his phone. He just shrugs his shoulders and sticks a post-it on his whiteboard. Must phone them back. No, he shouldn't be anywhere near that plane to Bologna, in my view.
What do we need him for? And the other thing is as well, another thing I'm not willing to concede just yet, Bologna have been garbage. So Bologna's form is absolute rubbish. It's worse than Feyenoord's form was. So I think they've won something like 1 in 10, and that was against the bottom team in the league. So they had a great season last season, but this season, for the last 10 games, they have been rubbish. So, we have a genuine chance here to remain in Europe as well.
Yeah.
So this ragtag, just not good enough, failures in every position squad could potentially, still get us through into the latter stages of the Europa and win a double.
That's incredible.
Yes. What's the likelihood of that? Not very likely, but it is still, as it stands today, possible. And I just refuse point blank to concede it.
Of course it's possible. It's possible even if we go 9 points behind. It is possible even if we go 9 points behind then. But the point I'm trying to make and where I'm coming from is this, right? Martin's brilliant, but he's going to need to polish some amount of crap to turn it into gold to get us to win this league. And you're talking about
Kev, the thing is, mate,
you're talking about like Hearts being rubbish and Rangers being rubbish or competent, whatever you want to say. We're like 6 points behind Hearts. We've had numerous opportunities to overtake Hearts and blew every single one of them. So I'm just saying, I don't think the squad has got the mentality to do it, even with Martin there. And I'm all on board if we actually fall off a cliff this season and it brings the change that we want. Maybe I'm on board with that.
I'm not sure it will, though. This is a problem. I've got no belief in the board that they would see it as an opportunity to then reset, Kev, and then rebuild properly. Kev, one of the guys that I was looking at there, obviously we all know about Lewis Ferguson. He's a player that I would have signed. I said it at the time when he was at Aberdeen. Remember Immobile, Kev? Remember us two at the Lazio game at Celtic Park?
Yes.
He's at Bologna. We signed him on a free transfer. He's
he's one of the boys who great in Italian football, and he always scores against us. If you look at his record against Lazio, he always scores against us in Europe. See if he's gone through a dry spot, we turn up and he scores. That seems to have been his way his career's went.
Well, he's not scored for them yet. Hopefully that doesn't happen tomorrow night, Kev. But Lazio, good memories of that particular game. John Milan. Let's go, Tomáš. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to him being confirmed today. Monty is tuning in from Cape Fife. So am I, Monty. So am I, for the time being anyway. Elaine McTaggart was listening to Quinny earlier. He is more than capable and working within the recruitment department. You know the thing, Elaine, right? I could get Kevin McCluskey to give me the top 3 players that we should target in Hungary. And I could get Liam to do it in Australia, Japan. The Australian boy says there's nobody worth watching in Australia, which I think's a bit harsh. But, in terms of recruitment, this is the thing, John, right? We played last year. I made the point here about improving the status of the stadium, for example. And then, travelling to all these clubs. We played 9 different teams in Europe last season. What can you learn from these clubs? When you travel over there, what can you learn from how they do business, how they look after their fans, what they do with the stadium, what players they've got? I mean, dearie me, you could be on a scouting mission every time we play a European club.
Yeah. Well, in terms of people that could be in the recruitment department, just come back to that, it's frightening to me, and it's now apparent why this is the case, where you have the guys like Alan Morris and Duke James, all the rest of it, that we're bringing players in. And if you even take Engels, for instance, their review of Engels was, look, guy's a very good player, don't know where he fits in this team. Well, we don't play that way, we don't have a role for him, all the rest of it. And so it has proved, until Martin O'Neill's come in now and maybe given him a role running late into the box and scoring and all that sort of stuff. But that's exactly what's proved. So we're just not doing that. So if you want to learn something from any of these teams, learn that. Learn how you have guys on your staff who can say, yeah, look, he's a good player, but for us, what's he going to do for us? Where does he fit? Where are you going to play him? So, and even that guy we were talking about there today, Čvančara, what's his name?
Čvančara,
sorry. But he, the whole thing with Nancy was flexibility. So you need players who can play multiple positions. Well, he clearly only wants to play one position. And he's not going to be happy if he doesn't get it. So, that's a change. So we need to be aware of, not just what coming in to do what, and this is the problem, as Kev was alluding to earlier on, with guys signing for long term in the summer. You could be a fantastic player in a particular system. New guy comes in and says, "We're not playing that way. You are no longer, welcome in that system." So that's just the reality. And Paul John, guys, I'm so sorry. I have to duck out. I have a meeting. It was great to see you all, and thanks very much to everyone in the comments for your usual comments.
Say hello to Patrick McGill. Hopefully it's with him. Right, thank you, John. Always a pleasure. We're going to be wrapping up very shortly in any case, Kevin Graham. But I think what's important today is we've had a different view on it. And this is not an echo chamber. I've got my view, Kev's got his. We can debate it, we can discuss it. And at the end of it, then we can look back on it and say, I was right, you were right. And I think we all get enough right, Kev, over the piece. Thanks everybody for getting involved. If you want to get involved in Acsom live events, all the ticket links are underneath this video. Give us a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel. We're heading towards 40,000, Kev, on YouTube.
Brilliant. See tomorrow night. I want us to win tomorrow night, and I want us to qualify for the knockout stages of the Europa League, because I want to see us win a knockout game in Europe before I. So I'm never going to go into any game wanting Celtic to lose.
No.
But there's a realistic big picture here of the mess that our football club's in and where we find ourselves. I just feel it's going to be difficult for us to actually get out of it. And no matter how good Martin, Sean and Fozzie are, that's where I'm coming from.
It will be difficult, no doubt. James, thanks for supporting A Celtic State of Mind. We've been saying better against the rest than Hearts, despite having Wilfried Nancy. Martin O'Neill's consistency against the rest will catch them. I agree. I don't think it's going to be rip-roaring. There's going to be some games where you're very disappointed in the performance, but you get a 1-0 and you're out of dodge. Could it be, and I keep saying this, I repeat, if Love Street 86, last day of the season, goal difference? Potentially. Kev will remember that well. I've seen pictures of you in your lime green 1986 Celtic jersey. Yeah,
I was at Love Street. Yes, I was at Love Street that day.
Fantastic.
So, first league I ever saw Celtic win in the flesh.
And 40 years later, Kev, you could be taking your daughter to something similar. Thank you, every single one of you, for supporting what we do. It's always an absolute pleasure. I said before that if we get a striker and I'll do an emergency broadcast, I don't think it's necessary because it's not going to be a surprise. So tune in tomorrow at 12:30 on A Celtic State of Mind.
Cheers.